Hello, my name is Miguel Mata, and this is the This Way Out podcast, a component of the This Way Out project. This podcast is my attempt to address a few topics that can be especially challenging for some, but hopefully in a way that speaks to the humanity in each of us. It's my attempt at being a source for positive messages in a time where such messages can be hard to find. Good morning. It's May 11th, 2020. How's everybody doing? I hope that you are doing awesome. I hope that you're doing awesome, in good spirits, and in good health, as always. All is well in my neck of the woods. Time for another podcast episode. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Going to do something a little different this morning. Going to share a few on this day in history facts with you. Unfortunately, there isn't much to share, but here's some gee whiz stuff. This day, May 11th. On this day, May 11th, in 330 AD, Constantinople became the official capital of the Roman Empire. I thought that was kind of cool. May 11th, 1858, Minnesota officially became a state. Thought that was pretty neat. Backtracking just a little bit, in 1812, May 11th, 1812, the waltz was introduced in English ballrooms, and wouldn't you know it, it was considered vulgar and disgusting. That's what happens though. New things and change, usually not accepted right away. All that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 probably upset a few people. Anyway, some neat tidbits this day in history. But as far as today's episode's concerned, I wanted to share today that recently, within the last day or so, I was reminded why I started this project in the first place. Why I started This Way Out. Recently I've had, because of the World Health situation and our having to stay home, I've had a little extra time to spend on social media and some of my preferred media outlets. And, I let myself get sucked in again. I got caught up in the negativity. Right? I got caught up in the negativity and started feeling like the world was falling apart again. I was getting overwhelmed, and I felt myself getting drained, and I was like, man, it just seems like it's like everywhere I look, it's bad. And then, take a step back. I talked to my wife. I observed my kids, do the things that they do, the little things that they do. I got in touch with a friend, and a friend actually spontaneously got in touch with me. That was nice. Nice surprise. And then I began to realize again that no, it's not true. The world's not falling apart. But because I had fallen into that trap again, I became curious. Why is it that I keep falling for this stuff? Why is it that I keep going back to the negativity well? Why is that? And so I decided to look into it a little bit. And wouldn't you know it, in the field of psychology, they'll never let you down. Maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe they will let you down. But for me, at least on this one topic, they didn't let me down. They have something that's known in psychology as negativity bias. And negativity bias is that thought process within our brains that kind of goes with the self-preservation part of our thinking, where we had to watch out for saber-toothed tigers in our caveman days, that sort of stuff, right? Well, that's what negativity bias is. It's dwells in that same part of our thought processes. And anyway, there was this psychologist named John Cacioppo, and I'm probably just butchered that last name, but I think it's John Cacioppo, out of Ohio State, and he did a study where he would monitor brain activity, right? He was studying negativity bias. He was looking at the brain activity of different people's brains and watching what happened when he would present it with unfavorable images and information. And wouldn't you know it, there's a lot more going on in the brain activity wise, right? There's a lot more brain activity taking place when it's presented with unfavorable and unfavorable information and images versus favorable images. And I know that kind of, I guess in a way that kind of makes sense. That's kind of like, duh, yeah, man, it's upsetting. That sort of stuff is upsetting. But, he did some other tests, but what he was able to confirm basically is that we actually seek out bad news because we're trying to determine where potential threats exist. So kind of, the connection that I make is like, back in our primitive days, we'd be like, oh, nope, those are paw prints right there. I'm not going that direction. Where else did I see paw prints? Where else did I see paw prints that I can avoid? The news, right? Mainstream media, social media, they are the sources for those potential threats that exist in the world. So we go back to that well to see where those potential threats are. But we don't necessarily realize that it's affecting us, right? And so that part makes sense. What doesn't make sense is when you take into account the news adage, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That's not very fair. That's not very fair. And you can actually look into that and see that it's kind of tiny bit true. And I actually had a personal encounter of my own that, sort of supported that. And it was actually this encounter that was the catalyst that got things moving for this way out. But the story goes like this. So this nonprofit group that I work with experienced some vandalism to its facility. And a local news station came by to do a story. And, they did their interviews or whatnot. When it was all done, I approached the reporter. And I told him, I said, hey, if you ever want a feel-good story, or if you ever need a feel-good story, come by on a given weekend. And, we always have good things coming over here because we're a group that helps disabled kids and adults, right? So I was like, hey, yeah, swing by anytime if you want a feel-good story. And the man, without missing a beat says, that's not what sells. And in that instant, I kind of learned two things. One, the news and social media, they're never going to let us down when it comes to negative stories and headlines. That's their job. That's their job. But what I can do is I can use that same media to provide at least some good news. And I determined that would be my job. That was going to be my job. So that seed was planted in that instant, in that encounter, in that short, brief statement. That seed was planted. The news will never let us down by providing us with negative stories and headlines. And if they're not going to let us down, then I'm not going to let us down either. But I had forgotten that. I had forgotten that. And in fairness to the news, once again, that's their job. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what they get paid to do. That's what they're supposed to do. And I had forgotten that. And I found myself getting overwhelmed again. I had convinced myself that the world was falling apart. But like I said, it's not true. It's not true. And now, after learning about negativity bias, and there's more out there other than the one study by this gentleman, by the psychologist. There's more out there. I'm not gonna butcher his name one more time, but there's more out there about negativity bias. But now with that knowledge, I realize that I have an awareness that I know why I keep coming back, and I think with that knowledge, I can now kind of convince or train myself to say, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm going back to the well. I need to take a break. And walk away for a little while. Only go back to the well enough to get my fill and not oversaturate my senses. And when I've exposed myself to all the threats, quote unquote, then I can go on about my day. Okay, I'm aware of the bad things going on. I'm aware of the scary things going on. I'm aware of all that stuff, Okay, I don't need to dive in any deeper. So that's what I'm going to do for myself, and I'm sharing this with you because just in case there are some of you out there who might have kind of that same issue. All right, so I'm walking away. I'm encouraging you folks to do the same thing, and hopefully I've provided you somewhat of an explanation as to why we keep doing that. But that brings me to my last and final point, which is another awesome human quality we all possess, and that is the ability to learn. So I learned something, and hopefully it makes me better for the future, and hopefully in this podcast episode you learned something and it helps you in the future, right? And there you go. Okay, so we'll go ahead and end the episode there. I really do appreciate, once again, you guys tuning in. I greatly appreciate, I would like to ask, as I always do, that you please subscribe and share this podcast with others who you think might be able to benefit from the messages and whatnot. Once again, I'm always looking for feedback. I would love to hear from you, whoever's listening. Send me an email, thiswoe.light@gmail.com. I would greatly appreciate it. I would love to get some feedback. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to get some suggestions on future episodes. it would just tickle me pink. It would just tickle me pink. But until then, I wish you guys the very best. I think you're doing awesome and fantastic work. Whether you believe that or not, I believe that. And I'll tell you what, hopefully it starts there. I believe that you are doing fantastic and amazing things. And I just ask that you keep being awesome, okay? Well, we will talk to you later. And God bless. We'll talk to you again on Thursday. This has been the This Way Out podcast, a part of the This Way Out project. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to hear future episodes, please subscribe. If you would like to get in touch with me to recommend future topics, provide feedback, or for any other reason, you can comment on the episode or send me an email at thiswoe.light@gmail.com. That's thiswoe.light@gmail.com. If you're interested in the other aspects of the This Way Out project, be sure to visit my website at thiswoe-light.com.